Okay, we're live. We're live. I apologize ahead of time if the bitrate is just abysmal for the stream. I really do. The internet has been even less cooperative than usual, and there's really not very much I can do about that, unfortunately. So, you might see some radical drops in or fluctuations in the video quality. I'm sorry, can't really be helped. Yeah, just real quick. Sorry for moving the date of the stream around. I usually stream on Thursdays, and just wasn't a thing. I made some plans for Thursday, and I had some other plans for Friday that I kind of lost track of. But it's okay. It's okay. We're back, and hopefully some folks can come along, and we'll see. Maybe this time is decent in general for people. I don't know. I haven't looked at comments or feedback for a while, so. Who knows? Maybe it'll become more of the norm. Anyway, here we are. And, I mean, we're not going to get to it quite yet, but the basic idea that I had for this stream was to look at some of the stuff on the Nintendo Switch eShop. That's just the Switch's digital storefront. And I'm definitely not the first person to kind of glom onto this particular topic. It's almost a whole subgenre of its own here on YouTube these days. But basically, the Switch eShop went from being a pretty darn like positive and well-curated digital storefront for a major video game platform. And over time, it became not that. Over time, it just seems that the amount of shovelware, which is sort of a slang term for like very cheaply and quickly made games or potentially asset flips, just get posted for sale, and no one that I've spoken to knows what the actual requirements are to even get have your game qualify for the Nintendo eShop, but it sure seems like the bar is not very high at all, and that should be a pretty major issue. Like, that should be a bad thing, and it should cause a certain amount of backlash. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's just that a lot of people, or experienced people, whatever, they just tend to ignore the shovelware type of stuff. But we have to consider the fact that the Switch has been an extremely popular platform with tons of people of varying ages. And that means that there are a lot of kids who have a Switch. Nintendo in general is seen as being very kid-friendly. And I feel really bad for any kids who might be browsing the Switch eShop and they don't have as keen an eye for cheaply made stuff. They don't know. I mean, you know, I think we were all the same way when we were really young. It was hard to tell what you know, you didn't have a conception of like, oh, this was made with a low budget. This was made by so I'm definitely not going as far as to say that the eShop has a bunch of stuff that would be potentially like dangerous or harmful to kids if stuff is meant for adult audiences and features and stuff. But beyond that, in terms of like game quality compared to price, there's very little. There seems to be next to no protections in place if we're kind of weeding that stuff out. And one of the worst contributing factors here, I think, is that there's no rating system on the eShop. It may be the only major like platform holder digital storefront that doesn't allow users to rate games. Like, it's just not an option. Sorry, the bitrate is going all over the place. I'm going to try to correct that here. It's just not an option, and that's insane to me. That is not the sign of a healthy, like, online marketplace. For example, just point of comparison. Imagine if all of a sudden Amazon said, "Oh, we don't do ratings anymore. No reviews. Like, maybe you can leave a review, but we're not going to show that to anybody. We're not going to show that to potential customers. You just kind of have to guess. You know, we show you the products we want to show you, and good luck." You know, and in a way, that's kind of how Amazon feels already at the moment. But at the very least, ratings give you some vague idea of the quality of the product, and you have that on Steam. You definitely have that on the Xbox digital storefronts. I don't have PlayStation stuff, but I'm pretty darn sure you can rate products on the PlayStation storefront. You can't do that on the Switch eShop for some reason. It's been the case since day one on the Switch, and it was not the case on previous Nintendo digital storefronts. The 3DS eShop, for example, you can see ratings, their user ratings, and that does give you a good sort of ballpark idea of the quality of the product or how many people actually like the thing. And that would be a very helpful feature on the Switch eShop. It's just not there. They just, I have no idea. It's hard not to read into that as like a slightly cynical or nefarious thing, at least in my eyes. Like, in a way that seems like, well, we just want people to buy stuff in general, and bad reviews could potentially discourage people from buying stuff. And Nintendo wants its cut of whatever the sale price is, you know, for every single digital game. I don't know. It could be something less nefarious than that, but that's how it feels to me most of the time. And I just I can't imagine. Like, it almost seems like it should be some sort of regulation at this point, that if you have a digital storefront, you have to allow people to review the products. That just seems, it seems kind of basic to me. And yeah, it would definitely help bring people's attention to the relative quality of the thing. You can't always trust reviews, obviously, whether it's critic reviews or user reviews, whatever. There's always room for manipulation on that front. But yeah, kind of crazy that it's just not even an option, not even something we can do here. Anyway, so that's what I want to get into. If people are interested, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, what else has been going on this week? Yeah, I'm sorry, I have been working on another video, but over and over again as I've moved through production, like, okay, I recorded the audio and the video, and I did some editing, and for like 2 or 3 days in a row, I keep going back, and I was like, okay, it's time to edit. We're going to sit down for a few hours and just edit the video, try to make it fun and visually interesting and all that stuff. And for whatever reason, this one in particular, I'm just not a fan of. I don't know. I just don't see a lot in it. And I just think to myself, why? Like, what is the point of posting it? I don't know. I don't know if that's an accurate perception. Maybe people would like the video just fine. But so far, I've had that internal hesitation of just being like, I don't know, it doesn't seem all that good. It doesn't seem all that interesting. And as a result, I've just put it off completely. So who knows? Maybe I will post that. Maybe not. I do have a couple other videos or video ideas that I'd really like to pursue. So we'll see about that. But yeah, otherwise, it's been, I guess, a pretty slow week. I've been working on some other projects here and there in my own time, and just trying to get things sorted, and also doing some job hunting, not to get too personal or anything, but yeah, I tend to look for jobs on a pretty consistent basis as a freelancer, especially. And it's not fun. It's not a fun process to go through the online job boards where you know that there are going to be a million different people applying and with the same qualifications and stuff. So that's been a bit of a drag, but at least I have time to do it. Hard to do when you have a big full-time job. So yes, there's that going on. Working on other projects has been nice, and yeah, not too much else. It's been raining here the last day or two in LA, which is very nice. I get all kinds of work done during rainy weather. It feels much more comfortable to me. Anyway, Basic Geek is here. Welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back to the stream. Basic Geek says, I caught up with the manga Record of Ragnarok. Now I'm waiting for chapter 76. The fact that there even is a chapter 76. Is that just how they name individual episodes, or do they have like mini story arcs? And that makes up a chapter. Also, now that you're caught up, what are any feelings in particular? Any I guess we don't need a full review, but you can also give a full review if you'd like. Oh my gosh. It says that it's literally dropping to 0 kilobytes per second for a few seconds. That's insane. That's terrible. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That's terrible. Anyway. Are we good here? Yeah, we're good here. It's fine. Dude says, what up? Oh, hey, Dude. It's been a while. How's it going? What have you been up to? Were you watching Record of Ragnarok as well? I still haven't checked it out. I dropped Crunchyroll a couple months ago, and I think I have to get it back again. Because it was actually a pretty solid anime resource. Also, Tubes, can you confirm something I was talking about earlier? So, Tubes, you're a PlayStation person, right? You do stuff on PlayStation, I think PS5, right? I think we talked about that. The digital storefront on the PS5, you can leave user ratings of the games, right? I just want to confirm that because I don't have any of that hardware, so I can't I can't say. But I was making a point about how on the Switch eShop you can't leave reviews of anything, and how that just seems insane to me. So I would really like to hear about some of the other platforms. So let me know if you're aware of that. Basic Geek says, oh no, the anime is three rounds behind the manga. Okay, the manga's way better. The current fight is amazing. Would it be a spoiler to say who is in the current, which historical figures are involved in the current fight? Is it like a tournament thing where people get knocked out? Because I guess then it would be a spoiler to say like who's still around at this stage. What else here? Yeah, I pulled up some junk. Toot says I'm pretty good but sick today. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I guess it's kind of that time of year though, right? I'm not sure if you can leave user reviews ratings on the PlayStation Store. I'll check. Well, thank you very much. You don't have to, but I appreciate that. I was just curious, yeah, just because I don't have any PlayStation stuff. But yeah, definitely a thing on Xbox. Definitely a thing on Steam. Not a thing on Switch. And of course, there are other review sites, you know, like Metacritic and stuff where users can leave reviews too. So that is one way to gauge. If you want to go to Metacritic and check scores for Switch games, that's one way to do it. But very strange and silly to me that it's just not an option right away. Yeah, so I pulled up. Okay, so one of the funniest ones that I found, and a lot of the shovelware games kind of follow the model of like really bottom of the basement like DVD releases, where they're just trying to capitalize on like some other big IP and essentially have like a ripoff or try to confuse people into thinking it's the same thing. So here, Puss in Boots is getting a lot of talk lately. Here it is. This is the Puss in Boots you know and love. This is Puss in Boots interactive book for $5. And it's just a book, from what I can tell. It's just a digital book with these delightful 3D models. I love the 3D model for Puss himself. Just so fantastic. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to assume too much, but I do assume that this was slapped together pretty darn quickly once, you know, The Last Wish really started to have a presence in online discourse and all that stuff. We don't get a developer, but we know that the publisher is DNC Games. So There you go. This is the quality you can expect from that publisher, and I'm very excited to buy this later on. Toot says, I'm not a big animation person. I watched Akira in 4K last weekend. Oh, and that was the only animated thing I've seen in a long time. Was that in a theater? Had you mentioned that they were doing like a theater screening of that? Or did you just get like a nice 4K rip or something? But that's fair. I mean, obviously, Akira is a classic. I was never a huge fan of it. I'm still not. Like, I respect it a lot, and it is a great movie. It was just never quite my thing. But it is great, yeah. And even stuff in 4K. Yeah, I've really been trying to. I talked a long time ago about getting the OLED TV. And when you actually can get like some 4K HDR stuff, it's kind of unbelievable. Like it's really gorgeous, especially for animated work. Like Klaus, that Netflix animated movie, the Christmas movie in HDR, looks fantastic on the TV. So I'll have to see if I can find Akira to watch on there. That would be fun. What else? I was watching Godzilla versus Kong in HDR, which is also neat. It's not a good movie, but it looks great most of the time, as long as you don't have humans on the screen. If it's just monsters and like environments, it looks fantastic. Basic Geek says, in my film study class, we just started our Wes Anderson unit. Oh my gosh. How have I never in my 16 years of living seen any of his films? Oh, really? Oh, we could talk about that for ages. And it's, just real quick, I'll say something that makes me sound a little bit old. But when I was in high school and college, the idea of having like an entire unit or portion of a class or whatever dedicated to Wes Anderson stuff would have seemed insane, because he was still kind of the new kid in town, sort of. Obviously, he'd been doing stuff since like the 90s. But Royal Tenenbaums, 2001-ish? Really took off, but it was a while afterwards where he actually entered into like the public consciousness, and people were more aware of like the Wes Anderson auteur style, his color palettes, the cinematography that he tends to lean towards and stuff like that. Anyway, so I think it's really neat that it's being taught. I'm not surprised at all. I do think he's one of the most, original American filmmakers in quite a long time. I do get a little disappointed that he doesn't seem to develop his style all that much anymore, but whatever. Who am I to tell him what to do? But anyway, Geek, I do want to ask if you have a favorite so far. Because, yeah, there's a lot to talk about with this stuff. Puss in Boots, basically. Basically. And it's even the black stripes, like, that almost makes me feel like this was a model for a tiger or something, like a cartoony tiger. And they're like, well, it could be a cat. we could make it a cat. Toot says, I got the 4K Blu-ray. Very nice. It gets released in theaters fairly regularly for limited runs, but I have not seen it in a theater. Gotcha. Yeah, totally fair. Yeah, 4K, the 4K, like, Ultra HD, HDR Blu-rays and stuff. I haven't gotten into too much yet. I should. Like Blade Runner 2049 4K HDR would be lovely. Or, I don't know, especially some other sci-fi or like genre stuff. I would really enjoy seeing in ultra high definition. But that's cool. Do you have a collection going of the 4K Blu-rays or anything? Or any recommendations? That would be great, actually, because I just can't buy a bunch of them. But it would be nice to have a small collection of go-tos. Wow, the internet's still that bad. Oh my gosh, what else can I do about that? I'll think on that for a minute. Geek says, we started with Fantastic Mr. Fox. Sure. Okay, now we're on Isle of Dogs. Now we're doing Moonrise Kingdom. Okay, so starting with the stop-motion animated stuff. Interesting. Fantastic Mr. Fox was probably the movie where I became aware of his stuff. I was still kind of young at the time. But that had a big push, and being animation, I was naturally interested, especially stop-motion animation, and had a big star-studded cast, and it wasn't until a while afterwards that I really started to get a sense for, oh, this is a particular director, he has this particular style, and here's some of the work that he's done in the past. Just didn't have, just, it took a while, basically. Is there anything else I can close out of here that would help the internet be a little bit better? Anyway, how'd you feel about those? I still like Fantastic Mr. Fox quite a bit. Isle of Dogs, I haven't rewatched all that much actually. I've seen it a couple times. I saw it in the theater, which was very nice. But beyond that, not a whole lot. Okay, what else we got? So this was I was looking through recent releases because that's typically a good way to find some more junky games. I hope I'm not being too unkind, but a lot of them do seem like just kind of cash grab stuff, which is disappointing. But these two games came out within like weeks of each other. This one is called Hike Valley, and it's walking simulator. You go on a hike and look for stuff, I guess. This is Hike Trip, a completely different game that is from the same publisher, presumably the same developer, and you also go hiking and look for stuff. And this is one of the things we have to get into, I guess, is the idea that like so much stuff can get buried on the eShop because there's so many things being added all the time. And if your game isn't selling well, it's not going to be towards the top. No one will see it. So certain publishers will keep releasing slightly different editions of the same game just so that it comes back to the top and is actually visible to people. So I was wondering if it was something similar here where they're like, whatever, it's sort of a different game. Maybe we change the environment a little bit. I don't understand. Yeah, let's look at the download sizes too. And he's like 271 megs. This one's 368 megs. So seems like they added some content to this one. But again, odd, sort of sleazy, strange, and at the same time I'm curious. I don't actually want to buy it, but I am very curious as to the actual quality. So those are some. I'll look for some more here in a second, but I want to catch up. Jude says, as far as I know, the copy that I have is HDR, but it's hard to confirm. Apparently, the first run of these 4K Blu-rays didn't have HDR. Kind of strange. I've been disappointed by the HDR implementation in older movies. I could see that. To my understanding, it's sort of... It's most appropriate for stuff shot specifically with HDR in mind. Because I think they might need to shoot like multiple passes of certain elements or something at different exposures. Like they need to have the material, the raw material that can be manipulated, as opposed to, I don't know, I don't even know how it would be done, of sort of remastering an older movie that's just shot like we just have a film print, we just have a file, have that a flexible amount of brightness throughout different portions of the screen and stuff. I don't even know how that would work, but I would agree with you just right off the hip, you know, that it just probably wouldn't make as much sense for older movies. Restoring, yes, like restoring and getting it to 4K for older movies, that makes sense because film stock in particular, even like 35 millimeter, I think can have a resolution of like up to 8K or something, maybe more, because it's a continuous, like almost organic object. So as opposed to something coming from a digital background where it's limited by the technology of the time. Sorry, I'm probably talking outside my area of expertise. But anyway, that is interesting. Sorry, Geek says, and I noticed that Isle of Dogs is both a metaphor for both capitalism and communism. Now that just my view on it. That's just my view on it. Art can have many meanings. It depends on the viewers. Yeah, definitely. I mean, subjective interpretation, absolutely. Yeah, and also like it's up to you how much. I need to look at this. It's up to you how much stock you give to the original creator's intentions for the movie. So I think in some kind of interview I heard that it was like more or less speaking to immigration, just the topic of immigration in general, maybe specifically getting into, immigration situation here in the U.S. So like, okay, got it. I understand that it's about a society deciding to value or devalue different people depending on background or identity or any of that stuff. So like, you can go with that viewpoint, that intention, that interpretation if you feel like it, or you can have your own interpretation of it and sort of the symbolism and meaning behind everything. Makes perfect sense, you know. Totally open. But yeah, I don't know. I was very much focused on just the surface level animation, I guess, of Isle of Dogs, just because it was such a delightful. I don't know. I mean, obviously they're on Trash Island, like it's an ugly world, but it's very interesting. Set design is fantastic. I love the character designs, and because it's Wes Anderson, and this is another, not trope, but another tendency of his is that he's just such a big film nerd. Like he loves movies so much and the history of movies so much that in every single one of his movies you can find just tons of references to other movies that he likes. And Isle of Dogs was 100% his opportunity to reference a bunch of Japanese movies that he likes since it was set in Japan. Tons of references to Kurosawa. In fact, one of the pieces of music in the movie is from a Kurosawa movie called Drunken Angel, which is really good. I don't feel like that one gets talked about as much compared to like Seven Samurai, of course. That's probably one of the biggest ones. Or did he do Spider Castle? I forget. Anyway, but that's a great one. Drunken Angel was great. It's like about a back alley doctor, basically, and just trying to survive. Anyway, so I like catching some of the references in his movies. There's tons of references in Darjeeling Limited, tons of stuff in Royal Tenenbaums. It's all over the place. Anyway, dude says it. HDR looks absolutely amazing in games and pretty good in newer movies. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I really enjoy it for like just big blockbuster stuff that's more recent. It looks fantastic. What else was I going to say about that? I don't know. I guess I've been looking for more HDR stuff just because otherwise I don't feel like I'm getting as much use out of the nice features of the TV. Like if I'm just watching some television show or something flat or something older, it just feels like I'm watching the show. I don't feel like completely taken up by how beautiful it is. And that's fun. I like being, you know, really sucked into it and just be wowed by the visuals and everything. Here's one called Superhero Fighting Legends, Space: Anime Mortal Battle. And I don't want to harp too much on like, you know, bad titles or stuff that's poorly translated, like whatever. Not everybody has English as a native language. Fine. This should be hyphenated, by the way. Hire me to edit your terrible game description copy. Very recent release. Do we have a trailer? This is another issue with some of these shovelware games, is that they won't even give you a trailer. So it's just like, okay, well, there are the screen grabs. I guess it's something like that. Does this guy have like a nightstick? It looks like he has like a police nightstick or something. Oh my gosh, it kind of hurts to look at. Lovely backgrounds. Don't you just feel like you're there? Full gore in Danny. Danny looks like some version of Solid Snake. Oh, that's what I was gonna say too. About HDR games. Yeah. Very nice. The Xbox I have has some HDR game stuff. Forza Horizon 5, I think, is HDR and looks fantastic. It can be very nice. And yeah, that's another thing where because it's a more contemporary work, they can build that into the game itself as opposed to going back and trying to remaster something. So I think those can look absolutely fantastic. Dudes also says Akira's animation is mind-blowing. I especially love the animation of mechanical components in industrial areas. It reminds me of one of the YouTube premiere countdown videos. Oh, okay. Well, I don't think I'm familiar with that. But that's definitely a big part of the art direction of that movie, or even the world building, I guess you could argue, is the industry in general. It's a kind of a cyberpunk future, but also rooted in that sense of 80s sci-fi where there was so much of an industrial bent to it. Even Star Wars, aspects of the original Blade Runner. Mad Max sort of is an industrial future, even though it's a post-apocalypse kind of thing. But yeah, the detail in backgrounds and the detail in these like fictional futuristic devices and stuff is very, very impressive there. Anyway, that was this. We really enjoyed looking at Superhero Fighting Legends Anime Mortal Battle. I don't know where anime comes into it at all, but yeah, there you have it. We have some, nice stuff here. Rider Among Dead, Mad Zombie Killer Machine seems like something we should look into, right? It kind of seems like. Thank you, truck. Thank you. Rider Among Dead, N dash, Mad Zombie Killer Machine Survival. So we have a sort of Mad Max looking. In fact, this looks very Mad Max with a guy riding on the back and the flame. Well, no trailer again, by the way. So you just kind of have to. You just have to imagine this in motion. Very Mad Max with the like basically empty landscape here. Oh, there's our water. Do you need water as like a game mechanic? Oh, fill containers with water. I see, it's water to the city. See, they answered my question right away. I shouldn't have wondered about that. City. Pick up the workers from the city, transport them to the water base. So a lot of Mad Max influence here, specifically Fury Road. Let's read the description together here for a moment. Rider among... Is that a quotation? Huh. Just at the start of the title. They didn't close it off with a quotation mark. Okay. Rider Among Dead, Mad Zombie Killer Machine Survival is the #1 action game that blends the mechanics of off-road racing and survival games. The world has been consumed by a zombie outbreak, leaving you to survive in the wasteland. You are the best at your job. Oh, thank you. You protect the ruined city from zombies. People trust you, and this makes you their savior. European spelling of savior, I think. To maintain and develop the city back to life, that actually sounds kind of interesting. Sometimes you have to work together to rebuild the life you once had. The zombie apocalypse brought not only the risk to be infected and become a zombie, that's a big one, but also the climate in your region changed roughly. Period. Ellipses. Oh, there's more. Oh, there's a lot more. Basic Geek says the reason they added anime to the title is because it's a high search term, meaning they have a higher chance of more people downloading the game. I agree. It's just funny to me that there's no connection to anime. They're just like, well, people like anime, right? And it's a similar thing with titles like this, where they want to stuff it with like keywords that are generally popular, right? Survival, obviously, survival games, survival horror games. It's still a big thing, has been for years. Zombie games are still pretty big, I guess. I would say that they've been getting a little bit out of fashion. Mad, I guess, is supposed to make us think of Mad Max. But Mad Zombie, unless Mad is describing the machine, it doesn't really fit. Let's see what else they say here. Explore a big detailed open world map with a realistic and immersive environment set in the desert. Okay. Explore the lands of the unknown, where every little spot or corner holds a secret. Drive your way through a zombie apocalypse with your off-road car. Complete challenging missions and tasks. There are very few survivors left, one of them being you. Well, that makes sense, yeah. Take the last chance to save the humans from extinction. Eradicating zombies has never been more satisfying. Get behind the wheel and play one of the best survival racing games. I thought it was a best action game. Okay. Keep upgrading your car to become better and better. Amazing looking graphics. Well-crafted sound design and realistic vehicle physics. A very friendly user interface and easy to use controls. The survivors need your help. Well, oh, this is where the quote ends. So the entire description is a quote. I see. So maybe that's Nintendo being like, we didn't say any of this stuff. Yep, software description provided by the publisher. Oh my goodness. It's an arcade game, it's an action game, it's a racing game, and a sports game. So you really are getting your money's worth here. $5. I might buy this on sale when it goes on sale for $2. I might get this. We'll see. We'll see. I can't do it now because the internet would implode if I tried to interact with it and download something. It wouldn't work at all. But I am I would at least like to see some footage on YouTube. I need to see it in action. You know, maybe I'll look for that a little bit later. Toot says, did you ever play any of the bargain bin PC games you could find on CD at Walmart or Radio Shack in the early 2000s? Some of those were really fun, and they didn't feel like obvious cash grabs. Well, if you have specific titles that you're thinking of, let's see. Well, one of the things we had that could be considered like sort of bargain bin PC games back then, it was probably more like the late 90s and the early 2000s. But we had a bunch of those shovelware or like shareware discs, right? So not shovel, yeah, shareware specifically. And that was a model back in the early days of PC gaming, right? Where you could get like a portion of a game for free. You could get it at the store for free or very little money. You could maybe mail order it. And the idea was you would try it out. And if you liked the game, you would buy the full version from the developer and they would send you the discs and you can play the full thing. But because all of this shareware stuff was free and could be distributed by basically anyone, there were a million different companies that just made CDs full of these games or floppies back in the day. So we had quite a few of those, and it was specifically like probably DOS games for the most part. And there were just like dozens and dozens and dozens on a single disc. And you could play those on Windows 95 and I guess even Windows 98. So we had a lot of those, and those were actually fun because it's not like all the games were junk. It's just that not all of the games had like a marketing budget, and they wanted to distribute demos basically. Internet storefronts were not really a thing at the time. So there were plenty of quality games. We had a demo or, shareware version of MDX, which is kind of a classic now. There's one called Space Goose. I think it's called Space Goose, which is one of my personal favorites. It's basically a shmup that's more difficult than it should be with like really chunky pixel graphics. That was great. But yeah, just tons of really fun games. I think we had one of the Load Runner games on there. So there was some great stuff. As for like Walmart PC games, I'm not sure if we ever actually grabbed any of that kind of stuff. We had some like higher quality PC games, like World of Goo was one, or some of the early Bejeweled games. Obviously the Humongous Entertainment games. But yeah, if you have specific ones that you can point to, let me know. And who knows, maybe some of them are free now and you can just download them. Basic Geek says, what's up with the AI Trump, Obamas, and Biden videos on YouTube? Yeah, I was just showing somebody one of those the other day or playing some of that one. But yeah, it's the whole thing. Well, obviously, like, deepfakes are back in the mainstream again. And it's not just, video deepfakes, but obviously voice generation stuff, AI-assisted voice generation stuff. And yeah, people have cottoned on to the fact that, like, it's very memey, it's funny stuff. And you can have them say ridiculous things, but most of the ones I've seen would be like they're arguing about Zelda or Persona games, just sort of, geeky stuff. I do think the joke is kind of wearing thin already, but that's just how YouTube works, right? If something is popular and everyone has access to it, other people will try to mimic that success. And for a while, it's going to keep working. Anybody can do this, and there's a decent chance that it'll get some pretty good numbers. So whatever, I'm not like mad about it so far at all. I do think some of it can be pretty funny, but I also think it's interesting just how quickly your brain figures out, oh, this is so, like, it sounds realistic for a few seconds at a time, but over any longer period of time, it just sounds completely fake, and every voice is so flat. Like there's so little inflection or variation in how they speak. So I think it's getting kind of old already, but it'll keep up for a while, and there will be many other examples as like other voice generation programs come about for other famous people. It'll definitely continue to be a thing for quite a while, I think. But anyway, Tude says the only title I remember is Zeus, Master of Olympus. I also played my dad's shareware compilations, but never bought any. Well, that was the funny thing too about the shareware stuff, is that I don't think a lot of people bought them, especially the demos. Basically, I would just play a couple levels over and over again. That was fine by me. I wasn't all that interested in, where the story was going to go or what the other levels would look like or anything like that. But I am trying to look up Zeus, Master of Olympus PC game. But yeah, we had a lot of quality PC stuff too. I really do like Lode Runner: The Legend Returns. I probably have it installed right now. In fact, I just think it's great, and it's very easy to play with DOSBox on contemporary PCs. That's taken a while to load, but I will look at it. Okay. I already looked at Pretty Girls Breakers Plus. It's basically a brick breaker game, but also they're anime-looking girls doing fan servicey poses and stuff, and that's it. There's not a lot there, and it also weirdly looks of higher quality than some of the other stuff that we've talked about so far today. So there's that. This is another thing that bothers me. This is actually a pretty popular tactic, it seems, with some of these lower budget games or sort of, quick cash grabby looking games. I don't know if they are cash grabs or what, but they look that way, is that they will have a fake price, basically. They will set an abnormally high full price for the game, and it will almost never, ever, ever be sold at that full price. It'll basically be on sale 100% of the time. And part of the reason is that then it shows up in the deal section, the sale section of the eShop, so there's a better chance of it being seen at all. And beyond that, 90% off, and it's a new game. This is not something that more quality games do. They'll have an opening sale that maybe takes 10% off, 15% off to encourage people to check it out. That's not what this is. $20 is not a real price. It's a lie, and this is something that Amazon has done in the past as well. They give an inflated MSRP, and then they say, "Oh, it's on sale. You're saving so much money." It's not real. And in fact, in many parts of the world, it's actually illegal to do this because it's so misleading. I think it's illegal in the EU. I think it's illegal in Australia. Not illegal in the US. We haven't gotten there yet. And I find it very frustrating. It's a lie. It's extremely misleading. And I haven't, this is brand new, so I'll watch it over time, but I've seen this with many, many other games where they'll be like, "Oh, the game costs $40 or $50. It looks like junk." But 100% of the time, every time I see it on the eShop, it's like $1. It's like $4 maybe. And yeah, that is exactly the purpose, is to make you think that like, "Oh, I have to buy it now. It's on sale. This is it. This is my chance." Let's see. Dude says, also, how's your internet so atrocious when you live in one of the richest cities on earth? My relatives in Romania pay $20 a month. Their connections blow your out. You're telling me, oh, you could say pretty much any place on the planet that has internet access has better speeds and availability than mine. And there are a few reasons behind that. I don't want to harp on about it too much. But basically, certain parts of LA, and plenty of other large cities as well, actually, it happens in New York a lot too, there are just certain areas where the service is junk. And part of that has to do with the infrastructure, the internet infrastructure of the city. Other aspects are just sort of the physical makeup of the location. So, for example, here, I'm using Verizon 5G Home. So it's all over the air, right? There's no direct data line coming from the building into the gateway. Everything has to come over the air. So there are any number of factors that can just ruin the speeds. And one of those things is that if there are a bunch of other people in the area who happen to have like Verizon service on their phone and they're using data, that takes up bandwidth. So I'm sharing that bandwidth with everybody. And you're doing that all the time with, data cable internet service too. But it's a little bit different, and I feel like it's just natural that more people are going to be using data on their cell phones in the area all the time, especially because I live in a very busy part of town. So there's just people sitting in traffic on their phones. So lunchtime and rush hour, the internet tanks basically every day. It stinks. And the worst part is these speeds are better than what I was getting with AT&T, which was a data cable connection. It was a traditional internet connection. It was worse. And it was always stable. With this, at least there's a chance that the speed will go up sometimes. And then sometimes it tanks. But with the AT&T service, it was just always bad all the time. I would never got a download speed of more than like 12 megs a second. And the upload speed was basically never more than 1 meg. Never more than 1 megabyte per second. It's crazy. I've had so many calls with customer service. I'm like, look, you said this was better. You said the speeds would be great. You're not doing it and you're not helping. And it just never goes anywhere. So there's that. I would love, they're trying to roll out fiber optic stuff for different parts of LA. But as you might guess, the really nice neighborhoods get it first. The very wealthy neighborhoods get fiber internet before anybody else. And then maybe years later, they bother to set up the fiber infrastructure for other neighborhoods. So sorry, ranting, and I've ranted about the internet in the past. And it's very frustrating too, because this is part of what I do. And it makes it very, very difficult to stream or upload videos or anything when the numbers are in the toilet. And yeah, like you're saying, people other places have great internet. People I know who like live 3 miles from where I am have vastly superior internet. People who live in other states have better internet. It's very frustrating. I won't go into sort of the history of internet service in the US specifically, but that's part of the problem too. Anyway, I apologize. I'm sorry that it's junk. This is just how it feels like acting today. Anyway, Basic Geek says, I got in an argument or fight at school with a kid because I said, Wukong can beat Kratos from God of War. Like, how spoiler for a 400-year-old novel, I guess. How do you kill someone with 7 levels of immortality? Oh, boy. This sounds like you were kind of in the Record of Ragnarok mode, though, do you think? Where it's like, okay, not historical figures, obviously, this time, but like, okay, here's a famous figure or like a hero guy. How would they stand up against someone from another, property, franchise, whatever, or another mythos? I don't know. That's kind of fun. I don't think it has to get, negative necessarily, but we used to do that kind of stuff too. These hypothetical scenarios and stuff and trying to pit fictional characters against each other. I just think it's a fun thing to do. But if it's getting really negative all of a sudden, then it's like, oh no, it's gone too far. Jude says, between my dad cheaping out on internet when I was growing up and the terrible internet in my university dorms, I didn't experience decent internet until I was in my 20s. I've been living in my city's downtown since 2015, and the internet has at least been reliable the whole time, if not super fast. That's good to hear. Yeah, and I mean, like, Tude, you were talking about shareware stuff. You remember like 90s internet, right? You remember like dial-up time. I don't know, like, so in that sense, I feel grateful that we've advanced and that speeds are better generally. But yeah, compared to like, oh my gosh, every other streamer on YouTube, every other streamer on Twitch, anyone else on the internet who's doing this kind of stuff seems to have a better connection than I do. And they do not have to deal with this kind of stuff. They don't have to deal with extremely low bit rates. They don't have to worry about the internet just dropping out in the middle of a stream most of the time. Or you hear about people with the fiber connections, right? And like gigabit internet. I can't even imagine the convenience that would come with those kinds of speeds and that kind of reliability. It would just be, it would blow my mind, at least for a while. So I definitely relate. I mean, especially growing up, yeah. We never had very fast internet. The fact that we had internet at all was kind of exciting, as like a teenager or a tween. Um, but since then, yeah, unfortunately, pretty much everywhere I've lived. I guess in Boston for a while, I had some decent internet. It was fine. Here in LA though, yeah, everywhere I've been it's just been junk. It's just been junk. Doesn't matter which provider it is, of the two or three that you get to choose from. It's just bad. Oh yeah, this one in particular is kind of an interesting point of comparison, and actually I should probably bring up I'll get another tab here because I want to compare. So this is a game called Choice of Life Middle Ages 2, and basically it's just a series of choices. So it gives you two choices at any given time. You pick one thing to do of those choices, and then that over time accumulates into your run, how successful you are at the goal. I assume here you're trying to be some kind of leader. Let's see. How to rule wisely and prevent rebellion, where to find faithful companions. Yeah, so you're running, leading a medieval kingdom, whatever. This is Reigns. This is a game called Reigns. Maybe you saw this. It was kind of big a few years ago. And it's a very smart concept. This is where the idea came from of this game mechanic, where you have two choices and you swipe between two of them. That's all. Like you're just making decisions and that's it. And then it leads to more decisions. And they've expanded this into a big series where there's like a sci-fi one. It started with a medieval ages kind of one. And mobile, you can get them on consoles and everything. So it really is a clone. And I generally don't have very positive feelings towards clone games, clone movies, whatever. Like it's hard to give them a fair shake, I think. Like you're just constantly comparing it to the original work that was probably a lot better. And I'm not saying that Choice of Life Middle Ages 2, which I didn't know there was a first game, but apparently, I'm not saying it's terrible. I haven't played the thing. And maybe it does bring some unique things to the table. Fair dues. Like, good job. That's fine. If you're using someone else's idea as like a launch point and building on top of it. But unfortunately, with so many clones, not necessarily this one in particular, it just feels like we're using someone else's idea and that's it. We just need some kind of art. The art's actually decent here, but you know what I mean? We need some kind of art. We need some kind of premise. Oh, let's just use the same premise, basically, as that other game that also had the same central mechanic. It's just disappointing. I'm not saying it's a legal issue. Nobody should be trying to sue the devs of Choice of Life Middle Ages 2, published by Red Black Spade. But it just makes me sad. It's the exact opposite of originality. It's just very much copycat tactics, and I'm not a fan of that. So it makes me sad. And there's tons of that kind of stuff on the eShop as well. It's just straight up clones. Feels like they should get filtered out or something, and they just don't. It just doesn't happen. Basic Geek says my friend's uncle has 600 years worth of free dial-up discs. Are they the AOL ones that they were just giving out for free for a long time, or is it just from other companies and stuff? That was a huge thing, was when AOL and AIM and all that stuff were brand new. That was a big part of their marketing campaign, was just, oh, we just give out the disc for free if a certain percentage of people actually sign up for it and try out the service. That's a win. And it turned out that tons of people tried it out, and it became a massive thing, of course. But yeah, that it was like prepaid phones or something, right? Of just like, you have X amount of time on the internet, and that's it. That's all you got. You have to pay by the hour. Kind of insane to think about now. It might still be that way in Japan. I don't know that much about like PC or computer culture in Japan, but I feel like it might be a thing there still, where you have to, where it's timed out and you have to get like prepaid cards and stuff. I don't know. Very funny though, that structure. I'm really glad we're not there. Very happy about that I don't currently have to pay by the hour because I'm using the internet constantly. Tooch says we had dial-up until around 2005, And then we used a third-party ISP that piggybacked off a bigger provider. Customers of the bigger ISP were prioritized before us, so our connection was pretty bad. Gotcha. Yeah, that almost reminds me of like, what is it? Where you get like, where you steal internet, right? There will be like shady, I mean, I don't know, maybe you guys live in nice places and don't get this, but I still sometimes see flyers around on telephone poles that are like, hey, I can get you internet for like very little money. And it's because people are stealing internet. They're redirecting lines from some of the infrastructure, and sending it to you. And that's very illegal. I've actually seen it happen here in the neighborhood before, where it was like, I swear, it was like 9 or 10 p.m. at night, completely dark out. And this dude shows up just in like a car and heads on over to one of the nearby like power lines or telephone poles, whatever, and took out, I guess, in a acetylene torch or something. He had some pretty heavy duty gear, but he had to bust open one of the control boxes or the electrical boxes. And he was doing this for a long time, and it was shooting up sparks as he was doing it, which it's very, very bright in a dark neighborhood. And the dude was doing it for like an hour. I don't know what was taking so long, but he was really working on this. He was doing this. I have a feeling it was something like, grabbing internet service or maybe cable service. That's the thing you can do too that way. It took so long, in fact, that somebody called the cops on him. And he continued to take so long that the cops showed up. And they were like, excuse me, what is going on here? And yeah, cuffed him and everything. This was a whole to-do. This was, 3-4 years ago, maybe. Kind of funny at the time and also worrying. But yeah, totally a thing that people still do. And I guess they're just willing to take the risk. I guess there's enough of a potential reward in it, that they were like, okay, sure. We're gonna just see how far we can get. Sorry, I'm messing around with camera settings now. I didn't like how pale I looked. I am pale, but I don't want to project. I don't want to amplify that with my camera settings. Anyway, so yeah, so it I mean, I'm sure the service you were using was actually, legal, or it was just a subset of their purchasing service from the other provider. But yeah, totally a thing. Totally, I'm sure it's still an option as well. But it is sad. It's sad that you have so few options, wherever you live, there are 2 or 3 providers who are even allowed to offer service, and that's it. They don't feel the need to compete. They don't feel the need to actually, deliver results. There's that very fun South Park episode on the topic. So it's funny in a way and also sad in another way, and definitely inconvenient because, yeah, I'm dropping to 44 kilobytes per second. There are tons of people who just couldn't even imagine those speeds right now. I'm sure I've got better service than some places in the world, but my gosh, it's such a pain. Was there anything else good here we could say? I don't know. I mean, I feel like the point has been made regarding the eShop stuff, and obviously anybody, if you feel like checking this stuff out, go for it. This is another example. So AAA Clock was basically a meme kind of game, or it became a meme, where it's literally just a clock on your Switch that you pay for some reason, despite the fact that you have a clock on your Switch already. It's built in. And they continue to release editions. They continue to release slightly different versions just so it can show up here in recently released, just so it can show up in the sales section. And again, it released 3 days ago for a list price of $9.19 for some reason, gets marked down to $2 immediately. It will basically never actually be listed for $9.19. And it would be interesting if this could show us all the different versions. Let's see if we can find that. Toot says, I think your paleness is overshadowed by the absurdly low resolution. Oh, and high compression of the stream. I have it set at 720, but at times I can't even tell you have individual fingers. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's just junk. Although I will say it's also been junk all week, so if I had streamed on Thursday or Friday, it would have been about the same. So with that in mind, sorry, I'll probably wrap up pretty soon. Real quick, I want to see if I can find Red Deer. Yeah, there's some big offenders in this area. They release a lot of stuff. It's not all bad, but here's taking its time. Sure. Yeah. I'm just gonna search for AAA clock and see if we get anything. Can I search? Wait, where's AAA clock? Anything? Nope. Yeah, see. This, I mean, it's kind of highlighting the point, isn't it? Oh, my goodness. Okay. If this loads, then we'll be done. How about those Pokemon games, huh? How about that $35 DLC? How's that? Nothing. Just not. Yeah, it's just not happening, is it? Yeah. Well, here's a sampling. AAA Clock 2, AAA Clock Ultra Special, AAA Clock Elegant Edition, AAA Clock 2 Premium Edition, AAA Clock Ultra Extended. Like, it's sad. It's sad to me. It's just no good. And it's just, yeah. Maybe a good way to tie up the overall message here. It's just if there's quality control present for the Nintendo Switch eShop, it doesn't seem to be functioning very well. It doesn't seem like they're doing their job as well as they could be. That's sad to me. Nintendo is completely capable of setting up a QC team for their storefront, and it's kind of gross. And then the review thing, not being able to leave reviews, is just kind of the cherry on top. Just gross. I hate it. And yeah. And Toot says, don't get me wrong, the terrible image quality is charming in 2006 era YouTube. Oh boy, yeah, the 360p days or 240p days. The only time is the problem is when the stream freezes. Oh, okay. In OBS it says that I'm not dropping frames, but I would not be surprised to hear that it's very unstable. And yeah, I'll probably stop. I don't want to inflict that on anybody. I apologize. I really wish there was something I could do, because I'm going to continue to stream, and yeah, Verizon's not doing anything. Just not a lot of help on the end of the ISP. And I'm stuck. Yeah, as long as I'm living in this place, I don't have options. I just have to wait until somebody does fiber or something like that. So, very sad. Very sad. I apologize to inflict that on anyone. I could potentially look for a way to record the streams and upload a nicer version later on. I don't know if anyone would care about that. But anyway, regardless, I'm working on more videos. I will post those as soon as they're finished, of course. And yeah, thank you so much for anybody who suffered through the terrible image quality here. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I guess we should get ready to wrap up. Toot says, does AAA Clock have the official Nintendo seal of quality? Apparently. Remember when that was a thing, when you could kind of trust Nintendo with their products? It's licensed, it's here, it's on the storefront, but yeah, just not doing it. Geek says, I did not like the D&D movie. Yeah, I only found out yesterday that it was even a thing. I'm not surprised to hear that you didn't like it. It doesn't seem like it's all that great. I will try to watch it probably at some point, as well as trying to watch the Mario movie. I am not expecting good things from that, but I'll do it. I'll do it at some point, whether it's in the theater or not. So yeah. But yeah, gosh, thank you again, specifically Toots and Basic Geek, for putting up with all this stuff. Yes, thank you. Have a good Saturday. Everybody have a great weekend. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to improve some stuff for the next stream. I really hope so. It's very annoying. And yeah, like I said, more videos to come. And yeah, take it easy. Don't feel the need to do a bunch of work this weekend, regardless of what you're working